can.
Yes.
Yes, we did. Yes, we will. Our sisters have gone from picking cotton, scrubbing other people's floors, to stepping into the cockpit of a commercial airliner. Last year, a flight from Detroit to Las Vegas had a first officer and a captain. And make no mistake, they were both African American sisters. Yeah, that's what I said too. Yeah. And instead of boarding the way most captains and first officers do and going into the cockpit, they went where the passengers were and introduced themselves and had it videotaped. And the people that were passengers on that plane that day, they applauded. They took pictures. They woohooed. Everyone was so wonderful to them for that historic flight. But now, you know, there was a time some decades earlier when a woman by the name of Bessie Coleman. Oh, I knew you was right with me there. That's right, Bessie Coleman. Bessie Coleman wanted to be a pilot, and she applied in all of the local schools. And they said, not here. We're not going to teach you that. And she found that there was a school in France that would teach her. She was a nail technician. Do you have any idea how much money they made? But she was determined that she was going to go to France. She learned French so that she could go. And she learned to be a pilot in 7 months. It was amazing. It was her dream. Bessie Coleman was living her dream, flying that plane as a pilot. She loved it. She was tagged Queen Bee. That's right. That's right. And eventually, she came back to the United States, and she was a stunt flyer. She was good. Everybody loved to see her fly. But as fate would have it, she was taken from us at an early age because of a plane malfunction. But while she was here, she left a legend. And she was followed up by Willa Brown. Willa Brown, she was her shero. Bessie Coleman was the shero for Willa Brown, and Willa did a lot of first-time things. She got her license. She got her pilot's license. She got a commercial pilot's license. And she got a mechanic's license. She could fix her own plane. She didn't have to ask nobody for no help. As a matter of fact, she was so enthused about what she was doing. She went to Washington. She said, "Did you know that African Americans can pilot planes?" And they said, "Oh, no. She said, "Oh, yeah. And she came back to Chicago and she opened up the first school for African American pilots. And she taught them how to teach. They went to Tuskegee Institute and they taught the pilots there. You know about the Red Tails, right? Yeah. Oh, I just loved it. I just loved that movie. It was wonderful. But that's where it came from, Willa Brown. Willa Brown walked into the Chicago Defender office. And she stood there in front of everybody and she said, "I'm Willa Brown and I'm here to see the editor." Every typewriter stopped. The room went completely quiet and they just looked at her. Finally somebody came to and went and got the editor. She invited the editor to come out to where she was having some stunt flying done by African Americans at an airport called Harlem that was in Oak Lawn at that time. Instead of sending a reporter, he went himself. And he was just absolutely amazed. He was in awe. She invited him to get into her plane, and she took him for a ride that he never forgot. Can you imagine a single-engine propeller flight? Now, I've been in a 747. I cannot begin to imagine what that little bitty plane felt like. But she did. She was a wonderful person. And in, I believe it was 2003, she went into the Hall of Fame someplace in Kentucky because of the original work that she had done throughout the 20th century. Willa Brown, amazing woman. In 1971, Stacey Grant, she wrote a book about being a flight attendant. She was the first graduate of the flight attendant training for Delta. And that was an amazing thing. She was the only African American in that whole class. And of course, she was excited when she got on board the flight. She was ready to give coffee or tea or whatever it was that they did. And when she would go up to the passengers, which were mainly Caucasian, they would turn their head in the other direction. And of course, you know, if they wouldn't take anything from her, what could she do? But then once the other flight attendants came by, they would order from them. And so that was something that she had decided that she would live with. And Delta supported her efforts in being there. Just hang in there. I know it's rough, but hang in there. And she did. And one day there was a gentleman who was sitting on the aisle, and she was offering him something to drink. And he looked at her and said, "Do you know your place?" Now, at first, she didn't know what he was talking about until she looked at his wife. And his wife had turned beet red. And then she understood what he meant. And she said, "Yes, I do. My place is right here." That was wonderful that she was able to come back with that. It was absolutely fantastic. African American women in aviation, sisters, standing tall and flying high.